This is the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. If you like that, then go check out the channel. We do this podcast each and every Sunday, so if you like that, please support the content. So this first news story is a very interesting and kind of ridiculously weird news story. Luke Falk claimed off waivers by Dolphins and other roster moves involving the former Titan. This comes from the Titans website. Waiver claims for players that were cut yesterday were processed this morning, and the only Titan player that was claimed was quarterback Luke Falk, who is landing on the Dolphins' 53-man roster. It was pretty surprising to see Falk claimed after an uninspiring preseason performance. While I don't normally buy into these kinds of theories, I don't think this could be a ploy by the Dolphins to get some information on their Week 1 opponent, given the fact that the Titans have shown very little in preseason and are getting ready to unveil a brand new offense designed by a first-team play caller. It makes more sense that the Dolphins are seeing something in Falk that no one else did during preseason action. This is a really interesting story. I covered Luke Falk in the offseason thoroughly. We did an entire podcast breaking him down, so if you guys want to go check that out, it's just a thumbnail of Luke Falk. That's how you'll find the video. But we broke down every quarterback, every big name quarterback in the draft. We did it every single episode. And one of the ones, and I watched a lot of their games, most of their games. I watched Josh Allen, Lamar, all of the big name guys that were coming into that draft. And Luke Falk was one of the best ones, really. I mean, he was definitely in my top 5, that's for sure. And that was a pretty tough top 5 to crack. We talk about, the Mason Rudolphs of the world, the Whites of the world. There were so many good, later round quarterbacks. Kyle Oleta. There was a lot of talent that could be groomed into something good. And Luke Falk was one of the better ones. He played in a system where they passed it over 50 times a game. That's one of the reasons why he dropped so far in the draft. Not to mention his arm strength is not where you would like it to be, especially at the NFL level. And we saw a little bit of that of preseason. There's a play in preseason where he had to throw a Hail Mary, and my God, it looked like he was throwing a frisbee in a hurricane. It was just not what you thought you would want an NFL quarterback's arm to look like. I mean, people gripe about Drew Brees' arm when he was coming out of college at Purdue, but Drew Brees has a way stronger arm than Luke Falk has. Now, that's something he can work on. That's something he can get up. We saw with David Fales. I mean, the man has a rocket for an arm now. He used to not. He used to have a dang paperweight for an arm. So that's something that you can definitely improve on. But, like I said, he passed it for over 50 times a game in Washington. He beat a lot of big schools there. He upset a lot of people in that kind of an offense where it was all on his shoulders. So I like Luke Falk. He makes quick decisions with the football. His release is really quick. He fits this offense to a T. I mean, he's smart. He makes quick decisions. He's super accurate. He doesn't have he can throw 40, 50 yards downfield. So it's not like he can't stretch an NFL offense or an NFL defense, excuse me. But he definitely doesn't have an arm that he could throw people open deep and stuff of that nature. Fit it in between a cover too. Tannehill has a way stronger arm than Luke Falk. I like Luke Falk a lot. I see a lot of potential in him. But again, he did not look good in preseason. He actually really surprised me. I was big on Luke Falk. There's a lot of rumors that he was going to go in the second or third round, and then obviously when the Senior Bowl came around, or maybe it was the Senior Bowl. What was it? I think it was the Senior Bowl. He really dropped down. He really dropped down draft boards. Just because he doesn't have the physical tools like some of the other guys did in the draft. His upside is nowhere near it's not even close to some of the other people. What you saw on tape is pretty much what you're going to get in the National Football League, which isn't bad. I mean, it's really good. But I really like Luke Falk. I think he's better than anything we have right now at the backup quarterback position. I think he's definitely better than Brock Osweiler. I think he's definitely better than David Fales for a lot of different reasons. He actually does things really well. Brock doesn't do anything really well, and neither does David Fales. I think Luke Falk could master the quick passing game. I think what you're likely going to see out of Luke Falk, I think the most likely comparison I could make is probably like Chase Daniel, or just a really good long-time backup quarterback in the National Football League. He could become a starting level quarterback, but I think most likely you're going to see him be a Chase Daniel. So I really like this signing. Thank God. Hopefully we can groom him into something really good. And he definitely, like I said, he has, especially in this offense, all the tools to kind of mold into something really good. But like I said, I think most likely he'll be something like of a Chase Daniel. This next news story: Adam Gase plans to keep 3 quarterbacks all year. I'm going to pause for a second right there. The Dolphins have kept both Brock Osweiler and David Fales as backup quarterbacks on the initial 53-man roster, and Coach Adam Gase said Sunday that he doesn't anticipate dropping either one from the roster if the team moves to add players at other positions. Gase said that the plan is to have both Osweiler and Fales, each of whom played for Gase with other teams, behind Ryan Tannehill all season. He said, quote, "It's one of the most important positions in football. We wanted to make sure we have the right guy." Gase did not specify which of the quarterbacks would come into the game in the event that Ryan Tannehill goes out. He said in the order on the depth chart changes day to day. It's the dumbest crapping answer I've ever heard in my life. It's just stupid. I can clearly tell you who's the better quarterback. We watched them all preseason. It's so lucky that Brock Osweiler is still on this team. It's unreal. The only reason you can even say the reason he's on the team still is because of the performance that he had against the Falcons, which was terrible. That defense that he was playing had no assignment discipline whatsoever. People were just open. It was absolutely ridiculous. The problems that Brock Osweiler has is he doesn't make quick enough reads. He stares people down. He's got tunnel vision. He doesn't have a quick release. He doesn't throw accurately with the football. He throws with 0 touch. He has 0 deep ball accuracy. It's honestly ridiculous. He does nothing well. I do not know why he's still on the football team. The only reason that he had, like I just said, the problems that I've had with him in preseason is he literally 98% of his passes go to the running back, go to the check down receiver. Look at the drives that he had against the Atlanta Falcons, and tell me he's not doing the same thing. If he was playing a defense or a well-coached anybody with any kind of football talent whatsoever, even a bad NFL team, that kind of stuff is not. You're gonna have to do something else to beat me. If you're gonna sit here and stare, you're gonna have to make some kind of a read or a throw. Okay, the fact that he is so lucky, it's honestly ridiculous that defense played the way that they did. It's honestly ridiculous. And obviously, he had a good running game behind him as well. He played with better talent when he was out there too. Like David Fales had Jeremy Langford, and he had Kalen Ballage and the other kid that I cannot remember his name right now, who also had a really good preseason. It just is frustrating. I don't know why we're keeping 2 quarterbacks. Make a decision, for God's sakes. If it was me, it sounds stupid, but I guess I would keep David Fales as long as I could. If Luke Falk doesn't, pick up the offense within a month, then I guess I'm forced to keep both of those 2. But I'm definitely keeping Luke Falk because he's a developmental guy. But I'm definitely not keeping Brock Osweiler. I can tell you that right now. I just don't get it, man. There's no reason to keep 2. And, we let go of Cameron Malvo, and we let go of some other people that are talented and that actually had a good preseason because we don't know who won the backup quarterback job. To be honest with you, neither one of them did. They both played terrible. So I guess you could just pick one, and it really doesn't matter, for God's sakes. But at least pick one. I don't know why we're keeping all 3 of them. And not including, we have also Luke Falk on the roster now. So it's just a mess, man. I just do not agree with that decision at all. It's just an absolute mess. Alright, this next news story comes from Pro Football Talk. Dolphins placed Jake Brendel and Mike Hull on IR and released Sam Young. The Dolphins needed roster spots after claiming quarterback Luke Falk and receiver Tanner McVoy off of waivers. They announced their move Sunday, placing center Jake Brendel and linebacker Mike Hull on injured reserve and releasing offensive tackle Sam Young. Brendel played all 16 games for Miami in 2017 and appeared in only one regular season game and one playoff game for the team in 2016. The the Dolphins initially signed him to the practice squad on October 11th, 2016. Okay, so basically, I mean, the Sam Youngs are really surprising because he played well and relieved. So again, like, just cut one of the other, like, this is dead weight that we're carrying at this point. And I don't want to say it like that because it sounds mean. I get, I don't want anybody to not have a job, but these other guys don't have jobs either. But the difference is they actually earn them and they actually bring something to the table. I mean, this is what the whole process is about, is picking who is the best and who can help the team the most. And I can tell you right now, keeping David Fales and Brock Osweiler doesn't help us at the same time. It's ridiculous. And, we lose talent like some of these people, like a Jake Brindell, like a Mike. Well, Michael's on injury reserve. Not Mike or Jake. Sam Young, who has played well, and I guess Zach Stirrup has played well, so maybe that has something to do with it. It doesn't make any sense to me, I guess is what I'm saying. If it comes down, listen, if somebody else talented is still out there that we need, we better crap and get rid of one of those two. All right, Dolphins. This next question comes from Dolphins Wire. These are some of the notable cuts that the Dolphins have made. The Dolphins had to get down to the 53-man roster before 4 p.m. deadline today. Below is a complete list of players that were waived. Cornerback Jonathan Allison, guard Isaac Asiata, cornerback Taviz Calhoun, I think that's how you say his name. Wide receiver Leonte Carroo, linebacker Kason Collins, cornerback Jalen Davis, tight end Thomas, I never say his name right, Durante, safety Trey Elliston, wide receiver Isaiah Ford, linebacker Frank Ginda, long snapper Lucas Gravel, I don't know if this is like Gravel or Gravel, running back Buddy Howell, Buddy Howell had a really good preseason, kicker Greg Joseph, running back Jeremy Langford, wide receiver Malcolm Lewis, cornerback Tony Lippett, defensive end Cameron Malvo, defensive end Claudia Matthew, center Mike Matthews, wide receiver Drew Morgan, defensive end Anthony Moten, wide receiver Francis Owusu, defensive tackle Jameis Pittman, running back Brandon Radcliffe, who actually had a really good last game, tackle Eric Smith, offensive tackle David Schmitz, defensive end Jonathan Woodyard, linebacker Quentin Poling, defensive tackle Kendall Langford, tight end Gavin Escobar, linebacker Terrence Garvin, quarterback Bryce Petty, wide receiver Rashawn Scott, and defensive end Quincy Redmond. Those are all, I think all of those are actually the cuts. And again, just to like Buddy Howell, now some of these players might not get picked up, so who knows. Tony Lippett, Cameron Malvo, Drew Morgan, who had not a very good preseason, Francis Owusu, Brandon Radcliffe. Like, some of these players showed way more than David Fales or Brock Osweiler did the entire preseason. Jalen Davis had a good last game too. So, I mean, if we're going to keep both quarterbacks because they had a good last game against insufficient talent, and we look at Jalen Davis, who had a pretty good game that game, or Brandon, or Radcliffe, or Bolden, or is that how you say his name? I keep forgetting his name. The running back from let me see here if I want to get his name right. Or Tony Lippett. I think Isaiah Ford's on the practice squad. Francis Owusu. Now some of these guys might actually be. I don't know who all is going. Or I don't know if waiver wires have picked up or by the time I've done this podcast or not. Let me know down in the comment section below who all got picked up on the practice squad, because I don't have that information right here. I couldn't find it. This next news story: Chiefs trade for Dolphins safety Jordan Lucas. This time, okay, let's see here. Jordan Lucas was traded for a 7th-round pick in 2020. Lucas was a 2016 pick by the Dolphins. Okay, yeah. So basically, I think it's basically exchanging 7th-round picks. But Jordan Lucas is no longer on the squad. He's now a Kansas City Chief. This next news story comes from Dolphins Wire. Dolphins running back Kalen Ballage has breakout game versus Falcons. After missing the previous 2 preseason games due to concussion, in the last episode I was like, why did he miss? And I was like, oh yeah, he did have a concussion. He suffered in practice. Kalen Ballage had a breakout game against the Falcons on Thursday night. He carried the ball 4 times for 25 yards and a touchdown, and caught 3 of 4 targets for 37 yards and a 34-7 victory over the Falcons. He had more yards than Ronald Jones has had the entire preseason, and he only had 4 carries. Look that stuff up. I mean, I cannot believe how many Ronald Jones is like more carries than he does yards. But yeah, Kalen Ballage, I love. I love Kalen Ballage. He's looked really good at preseason. I thought he looked better. Who did we play first? I can't remember. Who the heck did we play first? The Buccaneers. He looked. I think that was probably his best game. He did a variety of different, other than obviously he fumbled, but he made plays in the passing game, the running game. He had a beautiful cut in this game. And he's really showing you his athleticism, especially for a big running back like that. His athletic ability is ridiculous. It reminds you it kind of reminds me of DeMarco Murray, not quite like that there, but just that size and speed combination, and his ability to make people miss as well at that size is super rare. So. It was just refreshing to see that, and I already knew that he had it in him. But it is interesting because Sonoris Perry made the roster, and we have Kalen Ballage, Sonoris Perry, Frank Gore, and obviously Kenyon Drake. So that's going to be interesting what Sonoris Perry is going to do on this roster, because I don't even those 3 alone are going to get a ton of the carries. I mean, enough. Obviously, there's more carries than needed to go around between those 4. So I don't know why Sonoris Perry is still on the roster. I know he had a couple decent runs here and there, but he is nowhere near as good as the other 3. And I think if Kalen didn't get hurt, Sonoris might not be on the roster. This next news story comes from Pro Football Talk. Dolphins settle kicking competition. They go with Jason Sanders. The Dolphins had a pair of rookies competing for the kicking job, and they've decided, according to Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, the Dolphins are releasing Greg Joseph, which leaves the job in the hands of Jason Sanders. Sanders was picked in the 7th round, which gave him an edge walking into the competition for no reason other than the teams don't like cutting draft picks. The 2 rookies were actually roommates during the offseason, but Sanders will have a little more room to stretch out now. I thought this was interesting. I think it was the big kick that really decided it. I think Greg hit like a 50-plus yarder. And I think it was the last game of the preseason, or maybe it was against the Ravens. I can't remember. But I think I think that's a little I think it's a little bit. I think the reason, I don't think it had anything to do with him being a 7th round draft pick, but when people have talked to Darren Rizzi about it, Darren feels that Greg, and Greg, or is it Greg or Carl or Jason? Yeah, it's Jason who made it, or who got it. He's a little bit more cold-blooded when it comes to making clutch kicks, and he obviously has a huge leg. Even though I think, God, I get these 2 names mixed up. Carl, or what the heck is his name? God dang it. Stupid kickers, man. You know what I'm talking about. The one who didn't make it, sadly. I think he actually had a better percentage than he did. I don't think he missed as many as Jason. But, yeah, so I think the reason was, in the deciding, was that he trusts him to make more clutch kicks than the other guy. It's from what I've read and heard. Alright, this next news story comes from Bleacher Report, and they've listed who are the NFL's legitimate sleeper teams for 2018, and one of them was your Miami Dolphins, ladies and gentlemen. Similar to the Colts, the Miami Dolphins welcomed their starting quarterback back under center. The last time Ryan Tannehill played a majority of the season, the team went to the playoffs as a wild card. There's more to like about the Dolphins than lack of Jay Cutler, though. Between 14th-year veteran Frank Gore and emerging tailback Kenyon Drake, Miami has a solid 1-2 punch in its backfield. In 2017, Gore logged 1,200 yards from scrimmage, with the Colts. Drake, meanwhile, led the league in rushing, 440 yards between weeks 13 and 17, averaging 4.88 yards per carry in that span. Though the Dolphins have traded wideout Jarvis Landry to the Cleveland Browns, both Gore and Drake can help fill the void as pass catchers. Miami also added Danny Amendola, Albert Wilson, and tight end Mike Gesicki, who flashed his pass-catching ability at Penn State with 57 receptions for 563 yards and 9 touchdowns as a senior. The Dolphins may also have a third-round gem in Jerome Baker, who unseated Stephon Anthony for a starting role at linebacker. Rookie defensive end Mika Fitzpatrick's versatility will allow the secondary to show some different looks. 2. Miami should have an opportunity to challenge the Patriots for a division title. It sounds strange considering New England's 9-year run as AFC East champions, but the Dolphins have the talent to pull off a shocker. So there you go. There's a huge mainstream news outlet for sports that wrote something super positive about the Miami Dolphins. So there you go. I feel like, all right, we should include this, especially since I give Bleacher Report a lot of hate for being stupid half the time. Some of their opinions are ridiculous, but at least in my opinion, which is all opinions, it was just a dumb thing. But yeah, I felt like that was something nice. It's not something we hear a lot in the mainstream media at all. The Dolphins really don't get talked about, and especially when it comes to being positive about them. So I thought that was nice. And I mostly agree with everything that they said. It's, other than a little things I would have brought up, Mike Gesicki has also played super well in practice, catching touchdowns left and right. And I think the reason we saw him not run a lot of routes in the end zone, I don't know why we didn't see that as much, but I think you could make an argument that I guess the reason is because we didn't want to show a lot in preseason. I don't know. All right. So the Titans game actually, which is crazy. Now that we're done with the news, this is the part of the show where we do the fan Q&A, where we ask your fans questions, and I talk about something that I think is important before we get into the fan Q&A. So if you've made it 20 minutes in, and then I guess you're sticking around. So before we get into the fan Q&A, we answer fans' questions. I did want to talk about, I cannot believe that the Titans game is this next Sunday. I think it's crazy, dude. It's so crazy, man. I cannot wait. Even though, preseason has felt super long, and it always really, it always does. But this game's going to be huge. And I'm sure we're going to answer Titans questions anyway, so I'm going to keep this short and sweet. But this game is going to be interesting. I really like our team this year. I think it's a very, very good football team. In a lot of different areas. I think schematically the only thing I'm worried about on defense is schematic. I think we have to play a lot more man-to-man defense. And I don't, Matt Burke, from game 1 of the preseason, and I can't really remember game 2, but there was a significant difference in the way he called games. I mean, seriously, a huge significant. He called majority man defenses after the Panthers game. So that was the second game of the preseason, when we had all those busted coverages, especially in those first 2 games. He did notice that. Now, I don't know if that's going to translate to the regular season, but the lineup of Bobby McCain on the outside, with X on the outside, then you have Minka in the slot, then you have the 2 safeties with TJ and Rashad, Jerome Baker, Kiko Alonso, and Raekwon McMillan. D-line obviously is going to rotate, but you have Vincent Taylor, Devon Godshaw, Jordan Phillips presumably are going to be taking the majority of the snaps inside. Then you have Robert Quinn and Cameron Wick on the outside. That defense is really talented. It's schematically, I just hope we play a lot more man-to-man defense. This defense, clearly, for some reason, the zone defense is within this scheme. It's a lot of exotic stuff. It's a lot of zone, blitzy stuff. Obviously, our team cannot execute that at a high enough level to run it. Either that or it's just stupid. And it's not a good scheme. Like, I don't know whether to believe one or the other, because we have run simple zones before, and they've gotten destroyed. I mean, we can't even run a cover 3 right, guys. So Matt needs to recognize what fits his personnel well, instead of trying to shove this down, like, if they can't do it, then obviously we're gonna have to make a change. Nobody can do it on this roster. I mean, we saw it in preseason. I mean, the backup's backup couldn't run it crapping right. So that's obviously a huge red flag, and I hope that translates to the regular season. Will it? Who knows? Who knows with Matt Burke? Obviously he changed it for a reason. Hopefully he recognizes what we all are seeing. And I think simplifying the defense as much as possible is really going to help the team. And I think it plays to our players' strengths. I mean, when you saw Torrey McTyer and Cordrea Tankersley, some of these players, when they were able to get up in people's faces and actually play some man-to-man defense, they looked a whole lot better. The secondary looked way, way better. A perfect example of that, I mean, you remember the Buccaneers game, and even the Panthers, the touchdown to Ian Thomas. Watch that touchdown, and watch all of our players just stare at Cam Newton and not move. They just cannot execute zones very well. And again, the Buccaneers game is a perfect example of that. People were running wide open. Look at the Ravens game. When we played man defense, the secondary locked up. Then Lamar Jackson ran, but when we played zone, the touchdown to, I think, Jordan Lasley underneath, which was wide open. Nobody knew where he was. It was a blown assignment. Granted, those were backups. But we also have seen that with the starters. So just something that I've noticed that I think is a huge issue that needs to be addressed when the regular season rolls around. I hope this defense plays majority man, and I feel like it will be a better defense because of it, from what I have witnessed during preseason. Does that make it right? I don't know. Who knows if you guys agree with me or not, or anybody agrees with me. But from what I have noticed, that is what I have diagnosed, I guess is the best way to put it. So yeah, and again, against the Titans, the only thing that I'm worried about is he's going to have to figure out if we do play, let's say we are, okay, he's like, okay, I admit to it, I concede it, we're going to play a lot of man during this season, which is really, I think it fits our personnel, like I've said a million times, but we play Marcus Mariota, right? We're going to have to figure out a way to contain him the best way possible. Not only that, but read options have been a huge issue for this team, and that's something we're going to have to figure out. But I think the number one thing is just keeping him in the pocket. Do not let him use his legs to hurt us. If he uses his arm to hurt us, God bless you, shake your hand, good game. But we cannot allow him to use his legs, because I don't care about Derrick Henry. I don't care about, because they're not people. I've seen some questions because I've read ahead in the fan Q&A about some of the the concerns about this game. This team is totally different than it was a year ago. This team is more of a spread, read option, zone ready type. They're not a smash mouth football team anymore. They completely changed. They have a new coaching staff. It's different. They're going to be a lot more misdirection-y, very Andy Reid offense, right? So we just have to not let Marcus Mariota beat us with his legs. And that has to be the number one emphasis when he goes to the whiteboard with his big white beard and he's talking about, hey, this is what we got to do. All we got to do is stop Marcus Mariota. So we're going to have to figure out whatever it is. Spying on zone reads, we're going to have to be more disciplined in terms of our rush lanes and stuff of that nature. And I think we're going to have to make a personnel change too. I think we're going to have to bitch Cameron Wake and put in Charles Harris and Robert Quinn. That way we have more athleticism on the edge to contain some of those read options. Just my opinion. I just don't think Cameron Wake at this stage of his career can handle that. And we saw that with Cameron Newton last year. I mean, every time Cameron Wake was in there, the read option and the zone read kind of stuff was worse. So, we got to use what we have, and the best, the most athletic defensive ends we have are Charles Harris and Cameron Wake. Alright, so let's get into the fan Q&A. But yeah, that would be my biggest, and notice it was all on defense. But I think those are going to be the biggest issues in this game, in those games. It's just Marcus Mariota's legs, and figure out a way to stop the read option and misdirection plays. This next news story comes from, and again, that's his job. He's going to have to crap it, figure it out. This first question in the Miami Dolphins fan Q&A, and again, you guys can get your questions in every single Sunday. If you want to participate in that, just subscribe to the channel. Gamerific says, do you think Luke Falk is the next Tom Brady? And absolutely not. Absolutely not. I remember when he was drafted, and there was some serious, like, oh, this guy's going to be, sleeper's going to be, whatever. A lot of people compared him to Drew Brees coming out of college, and then he got to the Senior Bowl, and I think a lot of people changed their mind. But, he has potential. Like I said, I think his ceiling, or I think what he's most likely going to be, is Chase Daniel. But he could become something pretty good. I really do believe that. He has it in him. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, he played at Washington where he had to pass for like over 50 times a game. Some of the gripes that scouts had with him is his shoulder was just worn out from not only taking a beating, but passing for it a lot. He was sacked a ton. He didn't have a high turnover rate despite the high volume of passes that he was attempting, and he had a super high completion percentage. So all of those things are super huge. Like those are things that you look for in a quarterback. So yeah, I think all of those things could point to something special. But I think most likely what you're going to see to keep expectations low is Chase Daniel. Which is good, because Chase Daniel would be the best backup quarterback we would have on our team. Hell yeah, brother. Go Finn says, This is his question or her question. He says, I appreciate your podcast. If you had time, would you do a video predicting the record for the season? No, I don't do prediction video. I don't do predictions just in general. I do statistical predictions, but I don't like predicting the record. It's just like a superstition of mine. This next question comes from Lee Jr. He says, I liked running back Radcliffe, wide receiver Isaiah Ford, and Francis Owusu. I think they all had pretty fine games, especially the last game. Pretty good preseasons as well. This next question comes from Pete Martinez. He says, do you think Devontae Parker will be in the starting lineup against the Titans? It's looking that way. Now, will he actually... I mean, who the heck knows with Devontae Parker? Yeah, I definitely think he will be in the starting lineup, and hopefully he will make an impact in that game. Winley says, who do you feel... Or he says, how do you feel about us cutting Sam Young? I think Zach Stirrup probably just stole the job from him. I think, because, I mean, he's looked good in preseason, and I think the coaches, and from what I've heard in articles and stuff, you know, they feel pretty good about him. So I guess I feel iffy, I guess. This next question comes from Will. He says, how many games do you think Amendola will realistically give us this season? Oh man, I'm hoping 10. And even though, I mean, that's what, 5 or 6 games that he's going to miss. So 10 or 12 I think is what I really want from him. If he misses, you know, a few games here and there, I don't think it's going to be drastically. It's going to hurt, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to like wreck our season. So if he can give us that many games, I think he could realistically get us there. But I think he probably will miss like 2 or 3 games. Hopefully not more than that, because obviously he's had a history of that. So hopefully not. Will says, how do you think our D-line will do against Derrick Henry and the best O-line since the Cowboys O-line is a little compromised right now? I don't think they have the best offensive line in the league. I mean, they've lost, you know, a couple pieces. They've switched out some pieces here and there, but they obviously have 2 really good bookends with Taylor Lewan and Jack Conklin. The interior is not as good as some of those other offensive lines. We talk about the Eagles, and you know, I like the Steelers' offensive line a lot. I think they you know, with Marcus Gilbert and David Castro, who's probably the best guard in the NFL. Marquise Pouncey, the brother of Marquise. Like I said, they're not a smash mouth football team anymore. So I don't think that, like, the Cowboys are a power running football team. They oppose their will with that offensive line. I don't think the scheme that the Titans are going to show up with is going to be that way. So I think in that we have an advantage when it comes to that. But again, I think I'm more worried about Marcus Mariota's legs than I am anything else. This question comes from Skaggs Productions. He says, which addition from this offseason do you believe will make the biggest impact? Including draft? I mean, the easiest answer would be Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think Minkah and Mike I put in the same category. I think those two are going to make significant contributions to the team. But in terms of free agents, Danny Amendola, I think, is going to make a big impact. For sure. I think Danny's going to make a very big impact. And, you know, he fits this offense so well because, you know, when you look at the Patriots offense, it's so similar to ours in a lot of different ways, but the Patriots just have players that can execute it at a very high level. Players that, when they get the ball in their hands, like a Danny Amendola, like a Julian Edelman, can make 2 or 3 people miss and get upfield and turn a 5-yard, you know, pass into a 15, you know, 20-yard gain because they do have that wiggle stick with them. So, you know, now that we have somebody like that with Danny Amendola, who is a really good route runner, who's very quick coming in and out of his breaks, who can make people miss, I think that's going to significantly help our third down conversion rate. It's not Derry. I can't read very well. God dang it. Some of these names are just getting me. He says, do you think we should point the finger at David Fales and Brock Osweiler for Isaiah Ford, Malcolm Lewis, and Francis Owusu not making the 53-man roster due to poor quarterback performance? Like I said, I mean, you got to make the whole point of it, of sports in general, and competitive anything, is the best man wins. The best version of whatever comes out on top, right? And that might not be all, well, I don't know. I think that's always the case, almost all of the time, right? Whether you're just best for that day, it doesn't matter. I don't know why I'm... Okay, here we go. The point is yes, I felt like Adam Gase should have made a decision on that, and I felt like he kind of messed it up. I mean, he should not have kept both of them. He should have decided, in either way, like I said, it's like, taking... It's like taking the longest stick or the shortest stick. It really doesn't matter what you pull out of there, because both of them are the same. They're the same crap in size. So... it just really doesn't make any sense to me. You just got to make a decision in that situation, in my opinion. They both play terrible. So, Corporate Gamer says, should Bobby still start on the outside? I have totally come around on that. Yes, I do think he should start on the outside. Because I don't mind that lineup. I think it's a good lineup. I think it's a very, very sufficient, good, and I think it's a successful lineup. So yeah. Even though Bobby is such a good, he's just a good player overall. Logan Hampton says, why is Vincent Taylor not the starting defensive tackle? That's a great question. Jordan Phillips had a really good preseason when he played. Like, he had a really good preseason. I think a lot of people forget that. But when you compare Devon and Vincent, I think you can. I mean, Vincent clearly, from what we saw of him in preseason, dominated the guy in front of him. Now, whether he can do that against starters or not on a consistent basis, we really haven't seen that yet. But the Dolphins feel that they have people that can do that, obviously. But again, it doesn't really matter who starts because they're going to all rotate. They're all going to get a lot of playing time. So it really doesn't matter, Logan. Winlayer says, how do you feel about the Tony Lippett cut? I feel like Tony did not have a good preseason. He didn't look good. I don't know whether that was because he was injured. Maybe the injury, I mean, some people cannot come back for it, especially in this day and age. It kind of sounds crazy, but some people really cannot come back for that. And it just, Tony looked slow. He did not look like his old self. And I thought Torrey thoroughly outplayed him. Now, you can make an argument that Corjay Tankersley didn't thoroughly outplay him, but I think he definitely did play better. So I don't think he earned the job. I think other people beat him out. So it's kind of hard to, I think the feelings that we have towards him come from that 2016 season, so it's hard to kind of 1,000% be okay with letting him go. But when you look at the tape and when you look at the performance that he put on tape, I feel like you do have to go with the other guys. This next question comes from Tech Me Out, or I think that's what you mean. He says, Luke Falk, nice pickup as a developmental prospect, and get him for nothing. Poor fit in Titans' offense, but a really good fit in Gase's offense for sure. If he has the goods, should succeed there. Your thoughts? I completely 1,000% agree with you. I feel like he fits this offense to a T. He gets the ball out quick. He makes quick decisions. He's really accurate. He just doesn't have a big arm, and that's the only real issue with him. So yeah, I completely agree with that. And like I said, he passed for over 50 times a game. He beat big schools with a lot of talent on them doing that. And he had a high percentage throwing the football, and he also did not turn the ball over. So I think those are all huge, huge tells that he can be something pretty good on the national stage, on the National Football League stage. Christopher Neely says, does the overall depth of our roster leave you hopeful for the season we still kind of stagnant at key positions? Does the overall depth of our roster leave you hope for the season, or are we still kind of stagnant at key positions? The only part where we have bad depth, I would say, is at the quarterback position. Other than that, I think it's pretty solid across the board. I think a linebacker is an issue, because if Raekwon goes down, let's say Raekwon, Jerome, or Kiko goes down, it's going to be a problem. I don't think we have good depth behind those guys either. Gamerifics is, we got Luke Falk. What do you think Luke Falk can do for us if Tannehill goes down? That's a great question. I think depending how fast and how well he takes to this offense, I do think this offense fits him like a glove, but it is going to take him time to learn it and stuff of that nature, because it does require the quarterback to do a lot at the line of scrimmage. So it probably will take time for him to learn the position, but let's say he does learn it, and he can do a lot more than those other guys can. Ron says, does Dolphins have 4 quarterbacks? Tannehill fails, Osweiler, Falk. Do they keep 4? I wish they wouldn't. I really wish they wouldn't. I wouldn't mind them keeping 3 now, but I don't think we need to be keeping 4 quarterbacks. He says, Lou, do you think Brock Osweiler deserves to be on the team? Absolutely not. Philip R. Gonzalez says, what do you think about the 53-man team? It's pretty solid. Other than the keeping 3 or 4 quarterbacks, other than that, it's pretty solid. Lou says, do you think this team is better than the 2016 team? Talent-wise, 1,000%. 1,000%. Let's see here. Made me restart. Made me go all the way back up. Trying to find where I was. This next question comes from Will. He says, I'm sure you're happy about the transaction. It's possible they scooped Luke Falk for the Titans. He also models his game after Tom Brady. What are the chances they knew that and he stays on for the scout team on the roster? Again, he fits the offense so well because of the traits that he has. He can run an offense like this really, really effectively. The only thing that I have issues with him is, can you push the ball down the field if it's there? If it's there, can you make the play? That's the only problem I have with him. And again, he's not going to be Lamar Jackson. He's not going to be this. He doesn't have the potential to be a super souped up Cam Newton, right? He doesn't have the potential to be Brett Favre, like some people think Josh Allen can be, or Sam Darnold. He doesn't have that huge upside. What you see in Luke Falk can be special. Like, it's not like he can't be special, because he can be special, but he just doesn't have that wow factor like some of those other guys. Corporate Gamer says, should Dolphins sign another cornerback now? Should the Dolphins? No, I don't think so. GoFin says, predict the score for our first game. I'm not into that. Just a superstition thing. Corporate Gamer says, is Luke Falk our steal? Could possibly be. One more point I want to add. When you talk about some of the other high-value quarterbacks that came out of that draft, if all of them other than Baker Mayfield, which he pretty much passed for it, obviously a lot of game, and most college quarterbacks do, but none of them could have done what Luke Falk did with that kind of a pass rating, with that kind of completion percentage, with that kind of turnover rate, and the success that he had there at Washington. None of them could have done that at that level, I don't think. Maybe Baker could have done it, but I think it's very rare to see somebody do that at a high level. So I think that's probably the best thing about Luke Falk. Thoughts of releasing Lippett? It's like half and half. This question comes from Tyler. He says, is Luke Falk is only here for intel? No, I really do think he fits the offense and fits the scheme and can be developed into something definitely better than anything else we have on this roster. Dog2791 says, Devontae still needs to be traded. I don't know. I think we got to see what he's got. John Malone says, Asiata cut. What do you say? Was it a dead-end cut? I don't know if he'd still be kept on the practice. I don't know. I felt weird about that too, because I felt like he didn't play bad in preseason. I feel like he played pretty good, actually. Gamerific says, just one more week. He says, this next question comes from Tony. He says, how pumped are you that we got Luke Falk off waivers? I'm super pumped. Super pumped. I think it was a pretty awesome pickup. Another man's trash, another man's treasure. I was mad that we didn't draft him. That's so weird about him. I think it was the last episode. I'm like, dang, he did not play well in preseason. But maybe it was schematics. Could have been schematics. I think he definitely can fit this offense way more than he would have the Titans. But yeah. That has been your podcast for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see you next week. Next week's episode will be after the Titans game, I'm pretty sure. So that's pretty crazy to even think about that. It kind of gives me chills, man. It makes you kind of nervous, but at the same time, you're super excited for it. And I cannot wait for the season to start. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you like that, then go check out the channel and support the content in any way you can. And I can't wait to see you guys next week.